I will talk to you about Plansight any time of day. You can sit and watch me quote. I will help you, whatever it might be. Time is money, and
Mhm.
time is something we can't get back. We all work to make a living, but we all are also working, to live. We have families
Mhm.
that we want to spend time with.
Yeah.
We have things we like doing outside of work. I I don't even know how much time it would have taken me to try to quote that many groups without Plansight. I really don't know, because I do know there was a day I busted out 14 RFPs in a very short, because I had made I had taken like sticky notes and wrote 178 all the way down to one. And I was peeling off sticky notes, as I went to just like let myself see the number shrinking. And I was able to bust out so many in a day because of Plansight, because
That's awesome.
everything was in one place. It was put right into that's really what it is. So I was able to, quote, have the presentation beautifully done, ready to go to a client in 20 minutes. That's impossible using Rate Factory, Email Chain, Excel. And it looks good and it looks professional.
Welcome to Benefits Broker Boost, the show that gives employee benefits brokers practical strategies to grow, scale, and streamline their business. Presented by Plansight, where innovation meets efficiency in employee benefits. Now, let's dive in.
Welcome back to another episode of Benefits Broker Boost. I'm joined today by Whitney Williamson. Whitney is a producer with Trucordia. She's had a long career in employee benefits, from the
Yeah.
service team to account management, and now to being a producer herself. One thing that's fun about Whitney is she is actually our first Plansight user on the podcast. So we've had a lot of
Oh,
people
I
on the
love that.
podcast. First Plansight user, and one of the first users of Plansight, hands down. They've been with Plansight basically from the very beginning.
Yeah, I
So
want to say we might have been the first one, for sure one of the first ones using it.
yeah, um, you know, this is back when Plansight first got its start. Whitney worked with a company called Magellan, and was this 2 years ago that you were acquired by Trucordia?
So it was about 3 years ago
3
now
years ago.
that we were acquired, and then we've just started rebranding recently. So it feels like it was a lot more recent to everyone on the outside, but it was about 3 years ago.
Awesome. Awesome. So I've heard like hero stories about Whitney and the number of accounts that she managed on the back end, and we'll get into that a little bit. But this is going to be a really really cool episode because it will be talking through the experience of account management on the back end, and then transitioning into producing on the front end, and then
Yeah.
how you've been able to use Plansight through kind of each of those stages. So you spent years on the account management side before you became a broker. So why don't you give us kind of the run through? You mentioned to me earlier that you were personal trainer, you wanted a job with benefits, and that's kind of how you got your start. Walk us through your progression through the employee benefits space.
It's so funny because I don't know that any of us start life I'm gonna do insurance. Oh, literally never crossed my mind. So like I was telling you earlier, I was a personal trainer, but it just wasn't consistent. There weren't benefits. So I had a friend leaving Magellan, and she was like, "Hey, you should go apply." And it was funny because she was a personal trainer too before she went to Magellan, and she's like, "They won't care. They'll teach you. You're fine." So I go and I interview, and it was, you're kind of just thrown in, you're learning as you go. So I was doing like enrollments, terminations, processing, any of those kind of things that come through life events, day-to-day servicing, very minor issues that people might have, that kind of stuff. And then a couple years later, they announced they were going to have an account manager position. So I went to my boss and I said, "Hey, I want that job." Um, they gave it to me on the condition I got my broker's license. So I studied really hard, got that, did account management for a few years. And then earlier last year, they let me know they were going to be moving me into this producer role.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah,
that's exciting. That's a cool career path through, just kind of dipping your feet in. And then, so did you know kind of from like really early on in working at the agency that you wanted to become a broker, or is that kind of like as things transformed that you were like, oh, maybe I could do this?
to be honest, Adam, I never thought about becoming a broker really. I love account management so much. And honestly, that came easier to me than being on service team. Just the personality I have. I'm like, very ADHD and hyper and extroverted. So being out with clients was a lot easier for me than, sitting at the desk doing the email, that kind of stuff. I also didn't expect to be good at it, to be honest. I didn't think this would take off for me the way it did. I think it's become a natural progression for me to kind of take the next step with, in this industry. And I think I've learned so much in account management that it's going to help me a lot because of the different perspectives I have. I mean, I started at the bottom. I have experience in kind of every role other than like implementation in our office. Gives me a lot of advantages, I think, and it makes me cautious in certain ways and less cautious in other ways, but I feel very grateful I've been able to do all of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's dig into that a little bit. What did your account management role teach you about the realities of renewals and client management that you feel like some producers don't fully see?
I think the biggest thing is, well, one, I will never oversell, like overpromise something, because I've been on the back of that where someone was sold certain expectations and then it's falling on me to like meet something that's literally impossible. And then I think for a lot of producers, it can be really easy to look at the close of the sale as the finish line. But for me, that's the starting line. That's like where it all starts. I mean, getting them to, give you their business, that's kind of the courtship. But after it's, signed, that's the marriage, and it's a relationship, and it takes work and time and transparency and honesty and, all those things. So I think that's the biggest thing for me is I don't look at that as the finish line. For me, it's like, this is where it starts. I want this to be a long-term partnership, and, and you have to keep working at it. It's not like, oh, it's signed, we're done.
Yeah.
Account manager can just handle that. It's for me, that's something that I want to really hold on to as a producer is still being in the weeds, still knowing what's going on all the time, still, giving clients that face time, still making them feel like, they matter and they're important.
Yeah. That will bode really well for retention in your book of business.
Yeah, retention is huge. I mean, you can go, it doesn't matter if you're selling 100 accounts a year. If you're not retaining any of them, you're staying stagnant. There's no real growth there.
Yeah. I was talking to a really, really successful producer probably 2 weeks ago, and he was talking about retention in high growth companies being kind of his number one growth tool.
Yeah.
He said, you can find companies that are growing at 15, 20% employee headcount per year, get
Wow.
in
Yeah.
and retain those well. Guess what? You're also growing
Yeah,
at that
you're
same
growing
rate.
as well. Yep.
So yeah, that will, as you build out your book of business, that will be a huge benefit for you. And you've already got the experience doing kind of all of that piece. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm very, very grateful that I have different perspectives on the job.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be helpful, I think. Okay, so this is kind of the like hero story of Whitney that I've been told, and they kind of is like the one of the stories that gets passed around Plansight because you are managing a huge number of clients at once. I
Yeah.
think I think you told me 178 or something close to
Yep.
that.
178.
That's crazy.
And I kept a 98% retention rate, which is even crazier.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really crazy. And you've talked about how Plansight helped with that. What would that workload have looked like without Plansight, and how did Plansight help you go and manage that many clients?
Honestly, Adam, it would have been impossible to do it without Plansight. So we acquired a bunch of accounts from another Trucordia partner. So it greatly increased, the number of accounts I was managing. And I was quoting for Clay back in the day where it was Rate Factory in Excel. And let me tell you, you make one tiny mistake in Excel, your formulas are off.
Yep.
The whole thing is ruined.
Yep.
And you're taking, it from Excel where your formulas are, and then you're putting it into something else to make it look presentable to a client. There's a lot of room for error. And
Yeah.
you're working in all these different things, and we're all human. When you're looking at spreadsheets for 5-6 hours, you're going to hit the wrong button. It all starts to kind of blur together. The amount of time it would take to do all of those things and then even correct a mistake if you needed to,
Mhm.
In Plansight, you're able to quote and make a presentation incredibly fast.
Yeah.
Especially if you're working. A lot of the groups I had were under 10. So they were these small employer groups. But in a lot of those groups, you're working one on one with the owner.
Yeah.
If a mistake is caught, he's going to want that fixed quick. And he's going to want to see that correct spread real quick.
Mhm.
And Plansight makes that so easy. There's a little, I typed that thing wrong. It's so simple to go into Plansight and fix it. And the way it makes a beautiful presentation for you on its own is, in my opinion, one of the most helpful parts of it all. And the fact that you can go in and you can really get into the weeds with what you're showing and presenting, because a CFO, an owner, they're going to want to see all the numbers. They're going to want to see different contribution strategies, all sorts of things. But, sometimes you get, Kathy in HR and she's like, nah, just show me the rates. We
Mhm.
just need to get this done quick. He just wants bottom line numbers. So it gives you the ability to show what the client needs and what the client wants to see without it taking so much time. And we do want to give clients, time and attention and be thorough. But when you're managing that many, you have to be able to do it in the fastest way possible and the most accurate way possible.
Yeah, what's interesting, the broker that I referenced earlier that was talking about retention also told me that kind of the number one bottleneck in the renewal process is the dreaded what if situation when you sit down with the CFO or head of finance or CEO or head of HR, whoever decides that, what if we change our employer contribution, right? Or what if we went with this option that you don't have spread it already and now you've got to go.
And you're just like this.
Yeah, because it introduces almost automatically 5 to 7 days into the process because you've got to go back, get it set up. If you built if it's you in there and you built the spreadsheet, you could maybe do it on the fly. But Plansight gives you that ability to just say, okay, here you go. And it changes everything through it. And you don't have to worry about the formulas. You don't have to worry about any of that.
Yeah, it makes it, I mean, it's so easy that honestly, you could really hurry and spread, 3 different contribution strategies to have ready for them. And another thing I love is it keeps everything organized. That is another headache as, a broker or an account manager. One of the biggest things is you're having documents come in from so many carriers, the employer, employees. Sometimes if the health apps are needed, there can be so many things and it can be a lot to organize those. And with Plansight, you can just keep it all in one place. And it's easy, if someone's at a meeting, it's easy for someone to just jump in Plansight. All the documents are in here, the presentation's in here. It keeps everything just flowing so nicely and so organized. And another thing that's my favorite is you can look at, the previous year. It's going to store all of that info for you so you're not searching old emails for the quote that you got from principal 2 years ago. It's all in one place, easy to find, which saves so much time.
Yeah. And I'm not going to recommend anyone go and try to manage 178 accounts, but just that efficiency is
Everyone was always like, "Are
crazy.
you okay? You good?" I actually, really thrived in the chaos, and it's actually been really hard for me to give so many away, and have to give them to someone else. Because a lot of these people, I was just like, I'm really attached to them. I really care about all of them, and I didn't care if they, were just 2 employees. I'll sit and talk to the owner's wife, for an hour about what I think is best for, their company and their one other employee.
Yeah. It sounds like you really excelled at your role and cared about all your clients. Now that you're a broker, how does that background and your ability to just sit, brainstorm, come up with the best scenarios, how does that change the way that you sell, scope, and set expectations with your prospects?
I think the biggest thing for me is I always want to come off as very genuine. I never want anyone to think, oh, she's just nice because she wants my business, or I don't want them to feel rushed to make decisions because they think I just, want to close it. Like I mentioned earlier, for me, closing it is just the start. It's important to me to be very hands on, to always know what's going on, to get FaceTime with them, to make the employer feel confident about, the benefits they're offering their employees. And then if you want to take it a step further, it's not even just about the employees. This is their families. These are their wives, their husbands, their kids. Benefits they're such a personal thing because typically when we're using them, it's not the best time outside of having a baby, right? Typically, if someone needs help with the benefits, it's not a good time. So helping them feel confident and understand their benefits and know they have you in their corner is really, really important to me.
Yeah. One thing that Clay was telling us about how Plansight helped build his book of business was being able to quote additional lines really, really quickly.
Uh-huh.
It sounds like those conversations that you're having were a big catalyst of that, right? Where you're finding out about life events, things that they're doing, and then that opens the door for, oh, well, there are things that can help cover that, right?
Absolutely. So it is something, as you are building relationships and you're getting to know the team and their families and needs, wants, concerns. PlanSight does make that very easy. You hear, someone saying, "Oh, this broken leg really put me out last year." Wait, we have something for that. Are you guys aware of hospital, accident, all these kind of things, and it makes it very easy to show an owner what does that look like if, the company's paying for all of it? What do those numbers look like? What does it look like if it's employee paid? So rounding out our book has been incredibly, I don't want to say easy. It's made, yeah, maybe it's made it very easy because it's very easy to show them what these kind of options look like.
Did you find that I'm curious about this because I know we have a stat about it somewhere, but Clay made a claim that it helped grow the book of business by a certain percentage, which seemed kind of wild. I don't know if
I
you remember that, but
I know from like the groups I was managing, I was easily able to add on at least 3 additional lines to almost every account.
so that process, is that just because like with PlanSight, you can just say, oh, by the way, like quote these as well, and then you take them to them? Or is it more like I've had this conversation, this came up, so we're going to quote this line? Are you taking it and saying, oh, by the way, we could do these things? Is that the conversation starter?
Yeah, so typically we quote them anyway, even if there really hasn't been a conversation or with the employer, if an employee has asked a question, or even if there hasn't been a conversation yet, because so I think it's easy, when you're in the rush of fourth quarter and renewing and quoting to it's you're there's times where you're only doing the crucial steps, right? If something is going to take tons of extra time and you're just like, I don't even know if they want these. It's probably you're not gonna be as likely to quote things, that you're not sure they want. But when PlanSight makes it so easy, literally clicks of buttons, it's very easy to do something that isn't necessarily necessary, but is. And then I think just having the information in front of you, knowledge is power, and then educating them on what those benefits do for them. I think those are the things that make it, have made it easy for me.
That's awesome. So really the strategy then is have the information available for the conversation and then talk through how it would benefit the employees. And if they want it, great. If not, all you had to do was click 2 buttons anyway. And so it's not like you just did a bunch of extra work for it.
Exactly. No time was wasted. You clicked buttons
That's awesome.
and the info was just delivered to you. And then you clicked a couple more buttons to include that in your presentation.
I wish I had the actual percentage in front of me. I know I've been told it. I don't want to say it was something like 30% in a year with additional
We
products.
did a lot.
Yeah.
And I know that for sure because one time I was incentivized to add lines. That was part
Okay.
of, a goal of mine to hit. Like part of my bonus structure was you have to add X amount of lines, and I surpassed it
Okay.
because it really became a habit of mine. Nope, just going to click these, just going to include it. And it got me very comfortable having the conversation about adding new lines because, to be very transparent, being pushy or just like too salesy is like a fear of mine going into this role. And so that was something that, is helping me kind of ease into it. Is a new sale is essentially just that. I'm having conversations about benefits that are good for their people
Yeah.
and their company.
Yeah. And that kind of leads into the next question. So we know Clay is a very strategic broker that kind of like brought you up in the more like strategy, right? Not
Yeah.
like everyone's going to be fully insured, right? Everyone, you do level funding, you do self funding, and I know because I've worked for companies that Clay was the broker for. So I know there was always cool benefits, creative benefits. Tell us about how that's shaping your approach to being a broker and to your business.
I feel very lucky that I've been able to learn from Clay, and I still am. He is very strategic, and I think my mindset of, I like to say, "Oh, the signature is the starting line," and Clay has that mentality too. For him, these aren't just clients, they are relationships to him, and he's very strategic about the long-term picture and very transparent. If a group is having, a terrible year and their options are very limited, Clay always leads with, transparency. "Hey, things aren't looking hot. We're kind of cornered, on our options, but here's my strategy. We're going to do this year. And then next year, we're going to, do this and this." I feel like he's always thinking a year ahead almost. And that's helped me very proactive and to look at the big picture, and to lead with transparency with my accounts. Yeah, we could move you. Yeah, we could move, this year to these low rates, but I guarantee they're probably not going to be that low next year. So if you guys are okay with likely moving again, I think that is something that sets Clay apart is just, being very strategic, thinking ahead and being very transparent on
Yeah.
those things.
Anymore you kind of have to, right? With
Yeah.
the way that the benefits marketplace is right now, you've got to be looking 2 years ahead, 3 years ahead. So when you get into a client meeting, I know Clay did this because this is kind of how roundabout how I ended up at Plansight. But he would get into client meetings and actually just open Plansight with the client. And if they wanted something modeled, he'd model it right there on the spot.
Yeah.
As you go into client meetings, are you doing that same thing? Are you getting all the way into the weeds and say, let's just get to the final decision right now? I'll model these 3 scenarios, or are you like, hey, here's what I've got prepared, and then when they have questions, you're kind of like, okay, let's group up next week and discuss that? Or what's your strategy right now?
So mine kind of varies client to client. I have a couple that I do get very in the weeds with, and I know that their renewal call is going to be about 2 hours because I'm going to sit and I am going to show them every single option with Select Health, because they are a group that wants, they want that carrier and, they're 24 employees. So we sit and look at all different contribution strategies together, all different plans. And there are some I just know that's what we're going to do. Again, going back to, what are the pros of Plansight? Can you imagine trying to do that with Rate Factory and Excel in front of a client? You literally couldn't, you'd be like, hold on, I need to switch between my 30 different tabs here to get this for you.
It looks like that formula didn't carry over. Hold on, let me find out where that
Or
is.
knowing me like I did it wrong because I'm not an Excel pro, you know?
Yeah, that would
So
be.
yeah, it does make it very easy to get in the weeds with them, and it helps them make a decision right there. So and that is something, some people might say, "Oh, you're spending like 2 hours on a renewal meeting with this group," and it's like, "Yeah, but I would be doing that. I would be spending more than 2 hours on it if I was going back and
Yeah.
forth with them. Then I'm
Yeah.
looking at 8 hours."
And I think people underestimate the ability to get something done on the spot and how
Mhm.
much we always talk about the chaos of Q4, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, what are the things that actually cause chaos? Of course, there's back and forth with the carriers, but there's also that piece that causes a lot of chaos is now I've got to go back to the account management team, have them model this, and I've got
Yep.
to try to get back a hold of the CFO. And guess what? The CFO in Q4, they're also doing their own budgets. It's not like they're just waiting around for your email to come across, right? So now I've got to manage this. I got to get the CFO back on, say yes to this. Then I got to get with HR.
You're literally waiting for all these different people to make decisions in the busiest time of year, both at work and their personal lives.
Yep, exactly. So that 2 hours is like way shortcutting what is introduced if you don't.
And another thing that I love about Plansight is I think it empowers employers and it gives them like a peek behind the curtain because I don't think a lot of people out there realize like carriers will fight for your business. They want you, and nobody goes and like buys a car without looking at different prices. and where Plansight is going to take every carrier and just put it next to each other for people to see. One, that shows the client you're doing your job, right? That you're not just, here's your renewal. You're stuck with this increase. No, you're, again, clicking of buttons to get every carrier right next to each other. They can see your work. It is 2,000,000% easier to deliver a terrible renewal to someone. I had to handful of groups increases well over 27% this year. And it is so much easier to do that when I can say, hey, this isn't good. And I'm sorry, but I did my due diligence to not just you, but your employees and their families. And here's our homework. We sent you out to every single carrier. Even if you get declined on every single one, it's still showing them you did the work. Because the group that I just closed, how did I get them? They got like a 98% increase or something. And obviously they were very upset. Well, I took them out with every carrier and I got them a 17% increase.
That's huge.
So it is that's the easiest way someone can come in and swoop a group. It's even if they don't necessarily want that carrier, they don't like that network, or we have to be able to show them we're doing our work. We have to be able to show them, hey, you're not just a commission check to me. You matter. Your people matter. These ridiculous costs matter. I have your back. And Plansight lets you do all of that so easy, even literally in front of them. You need to show them they're unhappy with, the small employer rates with one carrier. Here, we'll go in and show you right now, these ones are 30% higher. So it backs you up. It's showing your work, and that is important. It's very important to me in this industry for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And right now, sometimes they're stuck with what they're stuck with, right? There are those situations, and exactly like you said, when you can bring your work and say, look, I tried. Here's all the people that I went out to. Here's what their responses were, and then you deliver the news that you don't really want to deliver, but then the next phase is, here's our plan going forward to make sure that we don't get stuck with this again. Like you said earlier, now you're just keeping that client for a long time and letting them know, hey, we're really working to get you the best situation possible, which you are. So that's awesome. And I love that you're using it that way. I think, you and Clay are pretty unique in that regard, in that sometimes people try to stay like separated in Plansight, right? And we're trying to kind of wean people out of that, where they have their account managers in Plansight and their producers not in Plansight, and they don't.
Yeah.
They're always afraid the producers are going to break something in Plansight.
Yeah.
And it really is simple enough that they wouldn't break things. They could, obviously, but they're not going to break things if they just want to model something out or show
Yeah.
their work. So we're trying to get to that point with a lot of our other agencies. And one thing that you'll see in the coming years, we're actually going to have a producer view where they can go and model everything.
I love that.
You can kind of limit as much as you want in there, because a lot of times they don't want to learn the whole software either, right? They just want to be able to go in and just say, change this. And so they'll have that view.
Right. We were kind of a unique setup. So it used to be where me and Clay were kind of like a hybrid of account managers and producers. So we had guys out going, getting new business. And then after that, me and Clay were retaining it all. So we have this unique role where it's like, we aren't going to break it because we've been in the weeds. So now it's teaching our account managers, and our producer that used to, just sell and is now in doing renewals. So right now we're getting account managers really familiar with it. So it's almost like a switch.
That's awesome. You'll love the update that's being pushed live in the next couple of days.
Wow.
It's basically user guiding that's by page. So if you're on a page, it'll say, here's all the things you should know about this page. Here's the different, and
Wow.
it'll walk them through step by step, and then have like a checklist of things that they need to understand to be able to
Oh,
use
that's
the page.
amazing.
It's gonna be really cool. So one thing, we touched on this a little bit, but one thing that is kind of like one of the main things that brokers worry about is getting into a room with a client and showing up with a mistake. And it happens basically every year, at least
Yeah.
once,
It's
depending
going
on
to.
volume, but it happens. With your team being able to work inside Plansight, how does that change your confidence level in renewals that you're managing and when you're making recommendations?
So I was one of the people making mistakes on spreadsheets for Clay back in the day because of formulas on Excel. So now being on the other side where I've had to present something, the worst thing is having to tell someone I showed you rates that were a lot lower than your actual rates. You know, that's the worst. And it's going to happen. But in PlanSight, especially with your guys' the AI, it's pulling, and you always want to double check it, but it's pulling info for you. And I love that you can have, right in front of you, you have the documents, and then you have, on the right, all of the info that you're populating. It's easy to double check. You're not having to go a million different places to double check. It's right there in front of you. And again, like we talked about earlier with the documents being all in one place. If you do get to a client and you're like, wait, this doesn't look right. I don't think these rates are right. It's so easy to just log into PlanSight. The documents from the carrier are going to be in there too. You're not searching. So it's easy to hurry and fix that. It's easy to pull up those documents, easy to hurry and change the numbers. The fact that PlanSight takes the Excel formulas out of it erases so many
Yeah.
potential mistakes. For me, that's the biggest one. Because look, I hate Excel. I don't want to sit and mess with formulas in every cell. It starts to stress you out. And then, if you're to the point where you've been doing it for so long and you feel like you're hitting the right thing and it's still wrong, you're just mad.
Hmm.
It's and it's stressful. Like if you realize it's wrong in your meetings in 10 minutes,
Yeah.
you're not
You can
you're
make
not
it
gonna
more
hot
wrong in
button.
that 10 minutes if you're trying
Yeah.
to rush
You're
too.
you're not gonna be able to you're not fixing that in time.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I think the all of the formulas built in on the back end so that if the inputs are right, the outputs are right is definitely one of the biggest pieces that we hear.
And for me, it's like what you said, if the input is right, the output's going to be correct. So for me, it's like if I'm typing in, you know, rates or whatever it might be, I'm just double checking that as I go. And then I'm incredibly confident it's correct.
Yeah. Yeah, the AI itself, we run really robust tests on it, and it's testing like over 94% accurate on everything that we run through. That's including really complex, 10 plan documents.
It's incredibly helpful and amazing when you're going through plan summaries for that to just populate.
So having that and then being able to, as long as you have your contribution model set up correctly and that nothing's miskeyed there, then everything's going to flow out the right way on the back end.
Yeah, it's so helpful. That's even an understatement. It really is a lifesaver.
Yeah, that's the people that really get into it and learn it and build around it, they have the ability to get to such really crazy efficiencies. You
Yeah,
already highlighted how many accounts you were managing, but the efficiencies there are crazy for both producers in being able to be more efficient with the time in Q4, but also for the account management team. Um,
absolutely.
so there was one more question that you basically answered, and it was for producers that are still relying on spreadsheets, email chains, the last minute fire drills that everyone loves. What
Like
advice?
having flashbacks. No.
Yeah. What advice would you give them after living on both sides of doing it with spreadsheets and then doing it in PlanSight?
Please stop. Would be what I would tell them. Please stop. I will talk to you about PlanSight any time of day. You can sit and watch me quote. I will help you, whatever it might be. Time is money, and time is something we can't get back. We all work to make a living, but we all are also working to live. We have families that we want to spend time with. We have things we like doing outside of work. I I don't even know how much time it would have taken me to try to quote that many groups without PlanSight. I really don't know, because I do know there was a day I busted out 14 RFPs in a very short, because I had made I had taken like sticky notes and wrote 178 all the way down to 1, and I was peeling off sticky notes, as I went to just like
Just
let
check it.
myself see the number shrinking. And I was able to bust out so many in a day because of PlanSight, because everything was in one place. It was put right into that's really what it is. So I was able to, quote, have the presentation beautifully done, ready to go to a client in 20 minutes.
Mhm.
That's impossible using Rate Factory, email chain, Excel. And
It's
it looks good
game
and it
changing.
looks professional. It's not some dumpy spreadsheet that I'm like trying to make cute, merging cells and coloring. No.
Yeah.
And it's going to be specific. It's going to have your branding on it. It's going to have, the client's logo. It looks so professional. It looks like it takes a lot more time than it does.
Yeah. And that's the goal, right? Is have it come out looking like you took a long time doing it, but not make it take a long time to do it. So
And people like to feel that. They like to feel like they took all this time to put this together for me. It looks so good. I can see, all of these breakdowns of the monthly cost, the annual cost, all of these things in one spot where you're not having to do all these different formulas to show those things. It's just there.
yeah. Yeah. I love that.
I
Okay.
feel like I almost don't I feel like I'm not giving Plansight enough credit because I'm so, like, nonchalant, like, it's just there, but it's really just that simple that to me, that's how it feels,
Mhm.
like, it's just all there. I'm not having to worry because I'm gonna be honest, knowing that I messed up Excel formulas for Clay that he went to present, I would be, like, triple checking every single thing someone did for me, and then where's my time? I'm not out networking, I'm not prospecting, I'm double checking formulas in Excel.
I always tell people that are adopting PlanSight, say the limiting factor on your growth when once PlanSight is implemented is whether or not you know what to do with the extra time that you were spending before.
Yeah, it's
So,
true.
but yeah, your group clearly does. You've done exceptional at growing your book of business. Now, almost a decade in the industry. We're
That
2026
just made
now,
me
right?
feel old.
Sorry. Oh, yeah, it's okay. I've been
It's
longer than
okay.
a decade in marketing, so I feel old
I'm
too.
accepting it, Adam,
Yeah.
slowly.
Hey, that's. But what has you most excited about being in the employee benefits space going into 2026?
I am excited. Call myself a vigilante of insurance sometimes because never I'm all my carrier partners are some of my favorite people. They've become some of my best friends. They're so special to me. And same with my clients, So it's like this beautiful dance of me being a partner to both of them. I will always lead with honesty and do what's best for the client, and I'll always be transparent with carriers about that. So I think I'm the most excited about diving more into that as a producer. I'm going to be able to dive into that in ways I haven't before. I'm excited to kind of be this vigilante out there teaching people how to use their insurance so they're not getting screwed over by their insurance. People I talk to, they might not even be my clients, but I will yap about insurance to anybody all the time. And especially, I don't know if you've seen it, but like this year on social media, people are extra pissed off at their insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so people will ask me about it, and I'm like, well, yeah, they're upset, but did you hear the part where they said like they went out of network or, they did this? So I want to educate everyone on insurance and how to use it. And I want to educate every employer that, hey, when you do get to a certain size, you don't have to just be fully insured. I'm determined to become a self-funding master. So that's something I'm kind of working on. I've met this incredible partner who, yeah, she helped me on a group I was working on. I didn't close it yet, but I'm going to come back and try to get it. And she's helped me with self-funding a lot. And so that's something I'm determined to master because I feel like that that is the way to change the insurance game for so many employers.
Yeah. I
And
agree.
then educating employees on how to use it. Like utilizing things like telemed. Again, so easy to click a button in PlanSight and just show them telemed options.
Yep. Definitely.
So yeah, I really just want to educate them. I want the employers to feel so good and so confident on the benefits they're offering, their people, because that's going to attract and retain talent, the benefits they're offered, especially right now when insurance is so expensive. People are, I think, more and more taking benefits into consideration when they're looking for jobs.
I agree.
And then I want every employee to understand the best way to use them and to get the most out of their money.
Yeah. I think the current market is going to be really advantageous for strategic brokers like you that have the experience that you do on the back end. And I agree that, as health insurance becomes more expensive. And as benefits become more expensive, companies are cutting costs there, which
Yeah.
means good benefits become a competitive advantage. And you mentioned that.
They do, and I think it's our job as brokers to also get creative, like, do we need to add in, something like Garner Health in here? What kind of things can we layer? A hospital critical illness plan, all of that could be beneficial for things that your employees are going through. There are so many things we can be strategic on, even as these premiums are increasing. Sometimes there's nothing we can do about, the medical increase. Sometimes we're stuck there and an employer is so frustrated. Whitney, I can't pay more of this. I can't pay more. Okay. Can you afford to throw in employer paid short-term disability? Can you afford to pay 100% of dental? There are these very small things we can do that add so much value, to employees. Even simply offering the benefit really looks great to people. So it's not, because sometimes it sucks and we really are just stuck with what we're stuck with on, medical rates. But there are so many other things we can strategize on to still make sure we're taking care of employees.
I love that. Like I said, it's going to be a good next few years for strategic brokers like yourself. And
Crossing my fingers at them.
this has been a really, really fun episode for me. Like I said, first Plansight user on here and one of the first Plansight users in all of Plansight users. So
I'm a
this is awesome.
big Plansight gal.
We
So, and
love
really
that.
thank you for having me on. Just
Thanks
letting
for
me yap.
joining us. This has been awesome. If anyone is walking away from this not taking something that they can go and apply in their business today, then they should probably go back and listen again. If you're watching this and you haven't seen what PlanSight can do, and you're like, surely Whitney is a paid actress. She's not.
I am not.
So
I'm just a girl that was managing a lot of things. I'm a very self-aware human, and I will tell you there's no way I could have done that and kept like my kids loving me and alive and, still making time to take care of myself without PlanSight. It's just, I've done it. I've done the spreadsheets. I've done the rate factory. I've given my boss information that was incorrect because I messed up formulas in Excel. I've been there. It sucks. So I'm more than happy to talk about PlanSight, with anyone, anytime. I know Clay is as well. We're big PlanSight fans over at Trucordia.
I love that. And if anyone hasn't seen it, feel free to go request a demo. Happy to show you how PlanSight's saving brokerages all over the country crazy amounts of time and stress in Q4.
And
Thanks
helping you
again
round out
for
that book.
sorry, go ahead.
And helps you round out that book of business for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you again for watching. This has been another episode of Benefits Broker Boost. Be better tomorrow than you were today. Whitney, thanks for being here.